Dana came out, he was talking about Amanda Nunes, and he was talking about the women's 145-pound featherweight division. And he just said, if Amanda goes, that division probably goes with her. Now, there's multiple reasons that you would have to consider that. Let's start with this. Let's start with the adverse to that statement. Are any of you sitting around, absent of Amanda at 145, and just dying to see a fight with two people in that division named... Do you see the problem? So, do you want to start over from day one? Well, no, you kind of wanted to do that on day one, which was a number of years ago. So the very first thing that you would need to do, and make sure you do understand the order of events here, the very first thing you would need to do if a champion vacated the division is to fill that spot. Somebody has to be champion. Whether they're worthy or unworthy, somebody has to have something that other people are striving to achieve and to take from them and to get. That's just what the sport is. So to fill two people in that could fog a mirror and go out and fight for a championship, the problem is you would then have to also build into the consumer's mind that whoever is wearing the championship can beat anybody who came before them, or you have problems. Use basketball by example. The second Michael Jordan was done, fine. Now you just put the media around a guy named Shaquille O'Neal. As Shaquille O'Neal got a little bit older, okay, great, but now you put all the hype and the views and the aspirations about somebody named Kobe Bryant. As Kobe started to exit stage left, okay, great, but you just passed all that attention to who really should have had it all along because he really was the best, named LeBron James. And we're going to find out that LeBron wasn't the best, and we're going to pass that torch as he starts to exit stage left himself. That's the way it works, but it also works because there's no way to prove it. There's no way to prove, is Jordan better than LeBron? Was LeBron better than Shaq? Could Shaq get the jump on Kobe? There was no way to actually prove it. And therefore you have the discussion, and therefore you have controversy, which is great for sport. Controversy creates cash at anything in life, particularly sport. But in MMA, when Amanda has starched everybody, when the three best female fighters ever, Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg, all have one thing in common, which is all of them got knocked out by Amanda in less than a round, it would be very hard for anybody to come in, grab that torch and run with it, and then make the argument of, well, that was then, but this is now, and I am better. Even if it were true, by the way. I mean, athletes have the right to get better. Felicia Spencer is getting better in front of our eyes every time she fights, just by example. In 2 or 3 years of Felicia training and competing on a regular basis, and Amanda done from the sport, yes, it would be very likely that Felicia of 2023 beats an Amanda who leaves the sport in 2020. But if it's not perceived that way, then it's not that way. And you could see the problem where Dana's looking at a division and going, look, we wanted to start this division and start forming and building this division on the day that we started forming this division. We're not looking to redo the whole thing. It's hard enough to find a contender that is meaningful for her. You're telling me that I'm going to remove her and I'm going to bring in 2 contenders that never wanted to fight her in the first place? Had to be leveraged into it, encouraged into it. I'm going to put them against each other. One of them's going to walk away with the strap, and I'm going to convince the world that they could have beaten Amanda. I mean, that's the problem, and that's what you're up against. That's really what you're up against. There is a reason in this business. The right thing to do is to go out like everybody else, flat on your back and embarrassed. You pass the torch. You don't leave on top, and you don't leave with the belt. You pass the torch. And the only person who did not do that is George St. Pierre. And the only reason he doesn't get any flack for it is he did every damn thing within his capabilities to lose. He cleaned out his division, and then he gave all of the top guys a second chance at him. He then leaves the division, leaves the sport, doesn't even train the same, it goes up a whole weight class. Everything stacked against him. Turns out he won that one too. He did everything he could do to follow the principle of the sport, of the industry, which is the business is bigger than any one athlete. He did everything he could do to pass the torch. Turned out he was too good to pass it. Okay, fine. Right, you got to wave that one off for George. Now he wants to come back at 155, stack the deck against himself, do something he's never done that nobody's ever done. George has done everything in his career to get beat. Turned out he just couldn't get beat. I think that same compliment has to go to Amanda. Amanda didn't only give everybody in front of her an opportunity. She changed divisions, doubled the potential parity, and still beat them all. Quickly. Decisively. So there are some athletes who just can't pass the torch. You just can't. But they tried to. So there would be no flack given to Amanda. Is there a little pressure on her to be a little bit of the Henry Cejudo and keep the division right? Yeah, I would imagine. She's a very sweet girl. She cares about those competitors. We've even seen that in her fighting. She pulled back. She put the reins on her last fight with Felicia. So, well, my opponent's not doing any better. I'm not taking any damage, and she is. I'm going to lessen up because the story ends the same either way, which is me winning a decisive victory. I mean, she is showing compassion while in battle. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. Ever. Boxing, MMA, kickboxing, I follow them all. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. So to make believe that she's not going to care about these young ladies in the back, and now there's a little weight on her shoulder, we'll see how she responds. I don't want to bully her into something. I'm just speaking on a statement that was made. What do I make of it? And do I see any way around it? It would be tough. Of course you could keep the division around. It may not make any dollars, which a lot of people are going to tell you doesn't make any sense. It doesn't mean Dana hasn't done that before just to provide opportunities for the ones in the back. But he would be in a real spot. That would be a real pickle for anybody. I watched Daniel Cormier go through that. Win a championship over Rumble Johnson. As scary and frightening and as competitive a match as you could possibly find. And then people diss on his championship and say that's just a placeholder because John Jones is gone. It was a very unfair thing to do. But it doesn't change the fact that this is the sport that we live in and perception is still reality.